SecurityVIP is the official podcast of the security industry, from manufacturers to end users and everything in between. SecurityVIP is your home for nothing but the truth.
You think you know me?
You're listening to the SecurityVIP Podcast, hosted by Taylor May, the official podcast of the security industry and home of nothing but the truth. Today on SecurityVIP, we feature the founder and CEO of Zulu Arms Security, LLC, James Smith. Get ready for nothing but the truth.
SecurityVIP Nation, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the SecurityVIP Podcast, the official podcast of the security industry and your home for nothing but the truth. As always, I'm your host, Taylor May, and on today's episode, we're featuring Chief James Smith of Helena West Police Department. Chief, welcome to SecurityVIP today. How are we doing today?
We're doing good. Thank you for allowing me on your show.
Of course, it's quite an honor, man, because, Daniel Henderson of Regional One Health, and then your own wife is like your personal hype man, because she was hyping you up, and she was like, you have to sit down with Chief James. I said, what, let's make it happen, man. So, Chief, tell us about yourself, man. Tell us the background of your history.
Well, I was born and raised in Helena, West Helena, Arkansas. I graduated high school in 1992. I went to Grambling State University on a full band scholarship. I got an opportunity to actually meet the legendary coach, Eddie Robinson. Right after that, grandmother had an illness. She actually heard my mom came from a single parent home. My grandmother raised me. I came back home, got with the Memphis Police Department back in 97. I did about 6 to 9 months as a PST. I got with the Memphis Police Department, became a patrol officer. My first assignment was the downtown Beale Street precinct. That's the old museum that they actually used. Worked my way up through some of the things that I wanted to do. Worked narcotics, probably organized crime unit for a long time, worked undercover. The first undercover operations back in 09, 07 or so, when we were doing under Director Larry Godwin. Larry Godwin was pretty much a chief in command of everything for the undercover operations. Worked homicide, worked Project Safe Neighborhood with PSN, dealing with guns with ATF, and went on to leave there, went on back to the North Precinct, where I worked probably about a year or so. I was working on my master's degree at the time, so that was real good for me. And ended my career with the Memphis Police Department after 20 years of service as a crime scene technician. I got the call from my hometown of Helena, West Helena, to actually become the chief of police there. That was a blessing. I actually turned the job down 5 times before I said, well, hey, what a better way to go out, to go back to my hometown. So I actually went back to my hometown. That was a very good experience. While I was there, it was actually coming into an environment where the police department, you actually had to build it from the ground up. So that was a big challenge for me. If anybody ever know, and some people can Google this, Operation Delta Blues that actually happened in 2009. 4 police officers were arrested for corruption. The town was really so bad, individuals started calling it Hell Town. And so coming in with 130 lawsuits already on the table, wow. I had to actually find a platform. What am I coming here to do? And one of the actual case law is Canton, Ohio versus Harris. That's a federal landmark case of failure to train. So I used that as my platform, got on the state legislation team for the Arkansas Associations of Chiefs of Police, did some things to raise the standards for law enforcement officers, not only in the state of Arkansas, but my hometown, which we changed the requirements to 16 mandated hours for police officers to 57 hours. And that's one of the things I did, along with bringing a new tool because most small departments in the state of Arkansas and Mississippi and other states is that they can't afford to allow officers to go out of town because of the resources, money. So I got virtual academy where officers can actually sit down at their home table with their laptops, go take different type of classes and get their credits through the Commission on Law Enforcement Standards and actually, get their certified hours. So I've been really staying busy. Just a little small thing about myself, my educational background. Actually, I'm a guru when it comes to school. I have actually 4 degrees. I have a master's in justice administration with Faulkner University. I have a master's degree at International College of Ministry in Christian counseling. I have a bachelor's degree in ministry, International College of Ministry, and I also have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with Bethel University. And now I'm a candidate for the doctoral program at Liberty University. And I'm also a graduate of Northwestern University Command and Staff in Illinois. And I graduated at the top of my class out of 250 law enforcement participants. So I'm big on education. I'm big on training. And throughout this conversation, you'll hear a lot about some of the changes that we see in law enforcement and security, and why it's very important to do a risk assessment before you get started in any type of business that you're in. And one of the biggest things is training your people and putting more stock into them.
And Chief, you're speaking fire already and speaking the truth, and that's one thing that Daniel Henderson said too, man, was being a continuous learner. I think he kept saying that 24/7 to me on our episode together. And Chief, I guess it's pretty safe to say that you, with your career, obviously it's impressive, not only law enforcement and education, but with your career in law enforcement, you've probably seen some shit, I would imagine.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of things, man. I've been retired probably like 4 days now. And I try not to watch television. I try not to get myself involved. There's a lot of different things that's going on, and people have to have the common sense. And I always tell people, policing starts in the home. If the home is in disarray, the home has no order, no law and order, you can't blame the police officers. However, we have to be counselors, teachers, fathers, mothers, and it's a very difficult profession to get into. And once again, like I said, we're going to talk about it, is that you got to have common sense. 99% of your whole career, regardless of the educational background, like I always used to tell my guys, that's nothing but words on paper that's put up on a wall. Common sense is the number one thing, treating people the way they needed to be treated, and also understanding the plight of people. And you have to be humanized, where you become a human first before you can actually put on that gun and badge.
No, I've got the utmost respect for the men and women in blue. My brother-in-law was a police officer here in Dallas. You're from the South, which I obviously respect anyway, because I'm here in Texas, you're in Arkansas, so we have a little Southern charm together. But for my listeners and followers, especially for my listeners right now, behind Chief, you can see all of his badges from his career in law enforcement. It's actually quite impressive. So if you guys do check out this video on YouTube, make sure to check out the live video. But Chief, let's talk about that a little bit further, man, in law enforcement, because obviously you're just retired, so congratulations. So we're going to talk about your new venture here in a second. But what has been the biggest change, man, for you in law enforcement from day one on the job to where you are now as a retired, Chief?
Well, Taylor, the biggest thing is changing is the people. You have to understand, getting in law enforcement, what I did probably 10, 15 years ago, we didn't look at law enforcement as a job. It was a calling. You can make it a career. Some people look at it as jobs, and no disrespect to the millenniums, but you got a lot of individuals, it's all about them. Yep. If it's not on Facebook, if it's not, they're not doing Snapchats to themselves. These individuals take it upon themselves. If it's not about me, I'm not a team leader. I'm not a team follower. So that is one of the changes. We always talk about technology. We talk about equipment, how we're going to better give us the tools to do the job. But most of the things for any leader that's in leadership, law enforcement, security wise, the biggest thing is that you have to understand is human capital improvement, putting more stock into your people, selling the vision to them to make them feel that they're a part of it. They need to be a part of it. When I came into the city of Helena, West Helena, you got to take it. I hadn't been back to that city in 30 years, after high school. So actually coming back, you had to change the culture of the individuals, the culture of the community. You have to find that community buy-in. Mm-hmm. And how do you do that? You come in and you do an assessment on your city. You send out some type of information on that assessment, getting some type of feedback. You can't go into it blind. But the biggest change is the people who looking at the job, they see television, or they've been bullied while they was in school, and now they got a gun and badge, and now they want to take it out on the world. That's doing proper background checks of these individuals, more psychological exams, which they kind of watered those things down. So where I came from 25 years, when I walked in the door of the Memphis Police Department, and I was telling the mayor of Helena, West Helena this, I can recall, and it brought chills, and it's still just talking about it brought chills to my body, is that when you used to walk through the Holt Academy in the Memphis Police Department, they had all the badges of the people who have lost their lives in the line of duty with their pictures and their actual badge. I'm not talking about, so I've seen badges that still had blood stains on. And I mean, it let me know right then at the age of 23 years old, when I first became a Memphis police officer, I was getting in some shit,
right.
and excuse my French, but it lets you know it's hard hitting. You may not walk away from this. You might lose your life in the line of duty, which I've had friends. And quite about about a year ago, I lost an officer in the line of duty. So having that mindset, you knew right then, hey, if you in deep with this, you got to take it hard and you got to go all the way with it. But that's one of the biggest changes. Hiring individuals who want to do a job that they look at it as a calling rather than a job or a paycheck. Mm. That is the biggest problem. Not only law enforcement, if you're in the nursing field, hell, if you're in the radio and podcasting, getting people who are going to be dedicated like yourself is one of the biggest challenges that you have to look at. And that's what I say, that twofold situation where it's quantity versus quality. You can get a bunch of people, or you can get a whole lot of guys to fill vacancies, young men and women to fill vacancies, but your risk go up a little bit higher because you don't know who you're bringing in. You might be bringing this individual in that used to, maybe he didn't get locked up for shipping or transport narcotics because he was that college guy. He used to be that one all old people used to say, throw that brick and hide their hands behind their back. And you might bring this guy on, now you're giving him a gun and badge. Now you got a problem.
Right.
But then you got that quality, and that quality position is you're getting individuals who are thoroughly immersed in what you're doing and what the vision is doing the job, enjoying the job, regardless of the pay, but they're doing it because of the love of humanity, the love of self, and the protection of manhood. That's one of the biggest challenges that I've had as a chief of police.
Man, everything you're saying, hits home, and it reminds me of my conversations with not just individuals like yourself, but SROs and school districts too. It's because it's about creating that foundation and that culture, like you said, and sustaining morale and bringing on people that are selfless, are going for a bigger cause. And I love to hear that. And is that one of the things you're most proudest of, Chief, is taking your last role as being the chief of Helena, and then transitioning and implementing that kind of culture? Is that one of the biggest challenges? You mentioned people being the biggest change, but is that one of the biggest challenges in law enforcement right now?
Right now, that's one of the biggest challenges. I think the other challenges is, Mr. Taylor, is that we have watered down our academies. We have watered down our training to get people, because don't nobody want to be the police anymore. Right. Okay, it's not a glamorous thing. You turn on the television, you look at George Floyd's situation, you're looking at all these situations. Individuals are scared to be the police because one pull of that trigger can just change the whole dynamics of your life.
Right.
So you have to understand, you can't come in here as Superman. You have to be, it goes back to what I'm saying, being human. And being human is that you got to understand using common sense on everything that you do. 99.9% of the job is common sense. Yeah, you're training. If you train well, you've gotten the proper training. See, there's a difference. You have proper training versus training. Proper training is continuous training, ethics training, psychological training, and all those play in the roles. But we look at what's the guy can shoot the best on the firing range, and we reward that individual. We look at the person who has high academic standards. That's great, that's fine, but where's the common sense at? And I think that's the biggest change and the biggest challenge in law enforcement or any business now. We always pat that person on the back to say, kudos, great job, here's a medal, here's an award. And that's one thing about America. We award bad behavior. For other countries, we don't. We award bad behavior. Think about the guy who he's had 10 or 15 complaints and you've red flagged him. You put him over in the property and evidence room. You allow him to be promoted. He goes through a promotional process, and now he's coming out the property and evidence room, and now you put him on the street as a lieutenant or a sergeant over some guys. He's already disgruntled, but we award bad behavior. So that's the biggest change, that we're continually rewarding bad behavior and what people are doing that we know, hey, some point it's going to be a risk.
Yeah, no, that's really good information. I couldn't agree more. Let me ask you this, Chief. You think, I guess, with your experience in law enforcement, that officers have become complacent? And what I mean by that is whether it's not, furthering their career, but maybe it's that one traffic stop or whatever domestic violence situation where they may overlook, oh, nothing's going to happen. They're not going to pull out a gun. They're not going to just try to stab me or fight me. Do you think officers have that mentality because they do, multiple stops per day or multiple stops per month, or what's I guess the incentivized motivation there with some of the officers done today?
Well, one of the things is I lost the Officer Travis Wallace, who was a young, feisty officer like myself when I came out. He was a very ambitious, very articulate young man that I would truly miss for the rest of my life, because you never think that will happen on your watch. But if we go back and look at statistics, most of the individuals up to now, probably back in the 2000s on up to 2022, prior to that, you had more officers who get killed in the line of duty or have 5 to 10 years on, and they get burnt out. They always talk about the routine stop. Nothing is routine. It's never routine.
Right.
It's just another stop that you've made, and you're going to have common sense to know that, hey, this stop right here could be my last stop that I ever see. But we get complacent, and we get to the point where the morale goes down.
Right.
Believe it or not, I purchased new vehicles for my officers prior to me leaving. And the boost of morale, and gave each one of those officers a vehicle, it just boosts morale, because you always hearing the negative. You always see the chaos and confusion that the human naked eye is not used to. The houses where a child may have been burned up in, and you can actually literally close your eyes and you can hear flesh sizzling. or the smell of decomposition. You know, those things play a lot on your psyche. And like I always tell people, don't take that home. When you start taking that home, then you have problems. You know, I've been fortunate to have someone in my life, my wife, who is a psych nurse, and I always play those. Well, she plays the game with me. You know, I'm always the patient, but that's good. That's good because I need that. But think about the 2 prior marriages that I had. Think about those officers who got into substance abuse. You know, for first responders, whether you're a fireman, policeman, the life expectancy after retirement is 57. They say that, hey, you're going to be, you probably are going to be in a position where you divorce, you become an alcoholic, you become into substance abuse, or the suicide rate, which we never talk about that wellness. And under past President Obama, with the mandate of police change and that police assessment, one of those things in that mandate was police wellness, you know, because we don't have those powwows. I remember as a rookie at 23 years old. Now, I was the youngest one in my precinct on my shift. And those older guys after work, we would go to the water hole. We would get in the back lot, we'll pop some beers, we'll drink and we'll talk. And if somebody's incapacitated, we'll take them home. Oh. Okay, we cared about each other. But think about it. That wasn't good either, because we were drinking, we were consuming, alcohol to kill the pain. I remember my first call going to the hospital, meeting a husband and wife. The husband died of 50 years. And the wife is there saying, hey, I don't know what to do now. I've been with my husband 50 years. He took care of everything. And I started crying like a baby. But I had a FTO say, hey, suck it up. Suck it up. You the police now. You got to put those things on the shelf now. Yeah. So that goes back to proper training. So once you get there and you don't have that person to talk to, and I can't reach out to my good friend, Mr. Taylor, and say, hey, man, I'm having problems. Guess what's going to happen? I'm going to commit suicide, or I'm going to go to a deep end where I get complacent and say, well, hell with the world. And that's the day that you lose your life.
Yeah, that's I mean, Chief, how do we get more awareness to what you guys are going through, or how do we get more people involved with law enforcement? What is the solution to get more people feeling good about joining the force and, you know, doing this for a better cause? What's the solution there?
I think that one of the biggest solution is just pretty much, as street terminology say, keeping it real.
Keeping it real.
It goes back to Mr. Taylor. When I went to the Memphis Police Department, I walked in that building. In the front entrance, they had all those badges of individuals who have lost their lives in the line of duty. I remember a Sergeant Rosser, who this guy was a person I looked up to. He was a kickboxer in the city of Memphis. He had won all kind of awards, and he just came in office one of our classroom settings one day and sat at the podium and looked at us and looked around and didn't say a word. And he said, how many of y'all know that you probably end up getting locked up for corruption? How many of y'all in this room know that you're going to die in the line of duty? How many of y'all know right now you're going to probably be buried 100 times and nobody else is going to ever want you because they think you're crazy? And how many of y'all that know that you're going to move up through the ranks and you're going to do what's right and you're going to take care of people? But let me tell you something. It hit home because the guy that sat next to me wasn't out 2 years, got killed in the line of duty. We had 4 individuals in that class that was federally indicted for helping ship drugs through the city of Memphis. It was so many of them that was in there that right now today are crippled mentally because of the stress and the divorces and all that. The main thing is just understanding that these individuals, regardless if you're a baby boomer or you're a millennium or this Generation X, just keeping it real with these individuals. Instead of taking them through the process, yes, we know the background check. We know we're going to take them through a physical. They're going to go through some type of mental, physical. They're going to do all these things, just keeping it real with them.
Yeah.
Just telling them, hey, you can die on this job, right? Now, your chances go up a little bit higher compared to being that individual that may work in corporate America, or that individual who works at a restaurant setting, but just know that you can die from this. Right. Well, here's the statistics. Now, do you really want to do this? That starts the chain to start moving in the brain. And that's more that we need to do now with law enforcement officers, or those who choose to go into law enforcement.
I like that, man. It's a whole different world. It's a whole different mentality, and you have to accept that. If you're not ready for that, then don't put yourself in that position. But having that kind of mentorship and heads up guidance before you, jump to that boat is key. So
absolutely.
I appreciate that, Chief. What's I guess the biggest piece of advice that you wish you would have had on day one at the age of 23 for someone new in your role that you wish you would have had 20 plus years ago?
I look at it like this. I had a lot of great people around me. I even had that lieutenant who's no longer with us now. I can remember this Lieutenant Robinson told me, he said, hey, son, it's going to be a day and a time that you're going to have to be a leader. And you're going to have to understand that everything that you do now is going to affect you later. You have to be smart. I listen to those things. I listen to the financial piece to it. You're going to get paid. You're going to do a lot of overtime. You got to live in your means. You can't live above your means. You got to save. You have to look at your retirement. Those things were given to me. So I can't say anything that's in my career, being that I'm 48 years old and I'm retired. Okay. And I started when I was 23. So I took those things, those little golden trinkets, and put them in my basket till they add up to a brick of gold. So only thing I would have said is you got to understand one thing. You can't put yourself in a bad position. You can't put yourself in a position where it will compromise not only you, but your police department, but most of all, your family. And when I say that, is that I have a lot of young men and young women, it's growing rapid, that do not understand that. With society the way it is, social media, Facebook, Twitter, there's a lot of things, and no disrespect to anyone on this. I understand about your First Amendment right, but you have to have some common sense. It goes back to common sense. There's a lot of different things I want to speak about, but I know even now, even retired, I can't speak on because it's going to hurt me in the future.
Right.
And I was one of those people in my career that didn't really have a filter on my mouth. And that's one of the things that I wanted to, if I could ever change. But I always was as one lieutenant used to tell me, I was the glue to the unit. I was always, when that guy couldn't speak out for himself, I took it upon me to be that activist for that individual.
Right.
But it's a time to speak. It's a time to talk. It's a time to just basically just listen. You just have to go back to what I'm saying, common sense, and listen. So in my changes is I should have had a better way of directing my communication to individuals, because I've said some things, nothing that was disrespectful to the individual, but putting myself out there on the limb and look behind me and I hear crickets. I got the group behind me, but I'm the only one that's out there. And just understanding when to speak and just when to listen was one of the things that if I could go back right now, I would have changed.
Chief, I think we're going to call this episode Common Sense, man, just because I think that's the overview of the episode. And I think, Chief, looking at your career and everything you've done, you've kind of obviously taken mentorship and learned from a lot of your your superiors, but you've also paved your own path, it looks like, too. You've been that
Yeah.
pioneer. You've been that advocate for others, which I love to see because, there's a few individuals like yourself. And I told this to Daniel too at Regional One. There's few individuals like him that truly go above and beyond and do whatever it takes for the betterment of themselves and the community. So
Absolutely.
appreciate all the advice. And let's talk about your new venture, man, because I know we spoke a little
Yeah.
bit about law enforcement. I know you're excited, dude. You're not really retired. I mean, you're retired from law
Yeah.
enforcement, but you're still in the security industry. So tell us about this new venture, man. What's it all about?
Well, one of the things that while I was as the chief of police, this has been a vision of mine, probably about 15 years of getting into the security private investigation sector, especially in my little small town that I was born and raised in. There was a lot of cold cases, cases that they didn't have resources, and a lot of them just they weren't properly trained to handle those cases. So I looked at it and I researched it, that under probably about 5%, 1 to 5% African Americans are in this field of actually having a corporate security business and private investigation. So the name of the business is Zulu Arms Security, LLC. We are licensed in the state of Arkansas right now. We're trying to get licensed Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, which I'll be doing a lot of traveling probably next week, getting those things done, meeting with some bankers and investors and everything in that nature. I'm very excited. The name Zulu Arms, Zulu means, it's an African name from the Zulu nation, Almost Zulu, meaning people of heaven. Me being an African American, just making a statement that, we need to stop making excuses for ourselves and just get up and go and do. But my biggest thing is I don't see black and white. I only see one color, and that's green, prosperity for all. And I'm very excited about the business because I've learned all this institutionalized knowledge that I have as being a law enforcement instructor for 2 states and have trained, and also been a professor at a university and everything like that, dealing with individuals. I'm very excited about the training. That's my biggest thing, is taking that institutionalized knowledge and just building it upon it and giving this knowledge to other individuals who may spark someone to go into law enforcement through the business. And one thing I say, Mr. Taylor, I've always said that I'm not a religious man, but I'm a spiritual man. And my biggest thing is, I always ask God if I can have a successful business. My main objective is to feed the people. There's a lot of talented individuals out there who are struggling to feed their family. And if you look at during the pandemic, the security business was over a $16 billion business.
Right.
And that's because with the defunding of police departments, you see it in Chicago. They got a big diaspora of people going to Florida and trying to find jobs and everything. It's a well-tuned machine that just need to be tapped into. So the private investigation part is main focus on corporate investigations, fraud, or situations where they're just want to interview individuals or looking at those cold cases. I've kind of directed myself a whole lot on investigation because most of my entire career was in the investigations with organized crime unit, DEA task force, homicide, crime scene investigations. That's pretty much been the biggest bells and whistles for my career, and I'm very excited about this job.
I'm excited for you, and anything I can do to help promote Zulu even further, let me know, because I think
Yes,
I've got a lot of connections in not only the security industry, but certain verticals too. We talk about ORC, organized retail crime, guys like at CVS and Walgreens, they have, a bunch of investigations that go on naturally. So Chief, I'm happy to support you and promote you anyway. Is it just you right now with the business? Do you have anyone else on your team?
Well, I have other people. I have Mr. John Dallencourt. John he has over 40 years in the military doing intel. counterintelligence and everything. He's pretty much right now doing the cybersecurity piece. We're in the stage right now. We're building it. That's why I went on and retired, so I could put more focus on that. We have other individuals on the team. So our biggest thing is to just try to build the team and get good, once again, qualified individuals who wants to really just get out here and do the job that's need to be done.
Yeah, I would imagine, Chief, that's probably one of the goals this year for 2022 is launching the company, getting everything sustained, your mission plan. I assume any other goals for the company this year?
Well, our biggest goals, like I said, Ms. Taylor, that we're in the process. We're flying out. We're doing 4 days in Hot Springs. We're going to Tampa for 3 days. From Tampa, we're going to Atlanta 3 days, and then we're going to New York and California for 4 days. So I'm going to be real busy on that. My biggest thing is, because of this, I want to sell this brand. We have different organizations. There's several different entities of security that are franchised, like Signal 88, and there's some other ones. That's really what I really want to do. I really want to sell that brand to start anybody of any nationality, creed, or ethnic background, religious background, the opportunity to get in this and to really show them the vision. Because one thing is, being a law enforcement officer, I've always took something that could have been better, but the police couldn't do it because the sanctions that was placed on law enforcement.
Right.
But that was a great opportunity to come in. One of the things I was looking at is being proactive and reactive. It's so hard now because the statistics are going up, homicide rates, violent crime rates are going up. The biggest thing to do now is who's going to be proactive. I wrote several grants for my department for surveillance cameras, sky cop cams, and all these different things and these tools, but they need somebody to get more involved in neighborhood watch and integrating in that neighborhood watch security, affordable security to watch the neighborhood. Who's going to watch over the flock when the shepherd's asleep, and not being so much of the shepherd being asleep, but the shepherd somewhere else trying to keep the wolves out the hen house, Right. So integrating plans for neighborhoods, community plans, coming in with these neighborhoods, talking to them, see what we can do, where we can find the resources, the funding. And also another thing that I'm working on now is the training piece. That's training security officers and law enforcement together. Nobody ever talks about that.
Right.
It's not trying to get your security guard to be a law enforcement officer, but they actually, sometimes the first responders, they see the things that you didn't see, that you missed. So why, with the defunding of police departments, the lack of resources for departments after these council and aldermen and all that, taking this money away from police departments, why not train them together? Right. So I'm very excited about that. And I want the right people at the right table so we could be able to get the funding to do that.
I'm excited for you, Chief. And I've never understood why you would defund the police anyway. It makes zero logic and makes zero sense, especially in K-12 when they want to remove school resource officers out of these campuses. It's just crazy, man. But that's the unfortunate thing, I think, around politics and security is you have the wrong people making these decisions when they don't understand what a true security professional goes through, such as yourself and such as we see here, here in the industry. So, Chief, you hit on it all episode. You just hit it on it the last, 10 minutes or so. But my last and final question on my podcast series is really kind of a selling question. What I do typically for my guests is I put them in a 60-second hot seat. My manufacturers, I ask them, why would I choose to invest in you? Why would I choose to invest in your company? So I guess, Chief, in 60 seconds, why James Smith? Why Zulu? Why? Tell me.
Well, the main thing, I'm not trying to sound cocky about it, but I'm going to be convinced about it. Why not Zulu Arms? You got an individual who really is for the people and want to do things for the people. I look at it, it's not about the money. It's about protecting the valuable things that we cherish so much in our life is family. You know, as a family man, I want my children, which are all of them are, I have 4 girls. So, you know, that's the reason I'm bald now.
Hey, God love you, man. I tell you.
Yeah. So, you know, they're grown, but I still want my grandchildren, my future grandchildren protected. I want the people protected. And one thing that has gotten me through the political environment is to listen to the people. Right. Seeing what their needs is, what their wants is. And, you know, it's just being a shepherd of God and just doing the right thing for individuals and try to motivate individuals that when you bring Zulu Arms on, you bring in a team. You bring a team of well-trained, real educated, and well common sense oriented individuals who can handle any job, whether it's the small community, the community enhancement job to the corporate America job. You got individuals who really believe in your vision and want to build onto it to safeguard your property, your life, and sometimes, you know, saving the whole community in a whole itself. So why not Zulu Arms? You know, like I said, you know, I don't try to make it a racial thing, but we got under 5% at African-American owners of corporate security at a higher standards, higher level that is actually working in this field. So I think it's giving the opportunity to a minority business is very important because the overall vision is to make sure that we all are one accord and we're trying to build communities, one community at a time.
I love that, Chief. You're real, you're genuine, you're authentic. You know, common sense is the name of the game. And, you know, that's a really good point there. And I hope all my listeners and followers, when Zulu Arms launches, I want you guys to please reach out to Chief James Smith. And Chief, any contact information right now that you can give away?
Yeah, we can give away. We have a contact number. Let me give you that number right now. If you want to reach out to Zulu Arms LLC, like I said, we're located in the state of Arkansas as of this. I live in Memphis, Tennessee, but where the headquarters is, I'm just right across the bridge from it. The number is an 800 number. It's 1-800-789-6556. That's 1-800-789-6556. That's 1-800-789-6556.
Awesome, Chief. I appreciate that. And my listeners and followers, please check out Chief. You can I'm sure they can connect with you on LinkedIn. Is that okay? As well?
I have a LinkedIn page. I'm gonna have to change my picture since I'm retired now. But it's under James P. Smith, Chief of Helena West Helena Police Department. I also have a personal number. Anybody want to get that as well? That number is 901-745-4093. That's 901-745-4093 if anybody want to contact.
Awesome, Chief. I appreciate that, man. And I appreciate you for spending some time with me on my podcast series.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Mr. Taylor, and much success to you and your endeavors. And just want to let the community know that, hey, we having hard times right now, but as my grandmother used to say to me, just believe in the good Lord, just do your part and everything else it'll be quite right.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yes, sir.
I could not agree more. And those listening on my podcast series, you guys can watch this episode of Chief and I on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify. And then for all the latest announcements and features about Security VIP, make sure to connect with us on LinkedIn. Chief, thank you so much again, brother, for the time.
Yes, sir, always.
We'll catch you guys on the next one. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. Y'all have a blessed day now.
Better recognize.